Entitled couple buy our house, posted by Titanic Euphemism. So we recently went to auction and sold our house. The couple who purchased it turned out to be rude, entitled twerps. We were very thorough in preparing our sale documents, going above and beyond to detail all the renovation works that we've completed. Due to public holidays in our open house period, we also had more than the usual inspection times and even opened the house privately for some interested parties. There was ample opportunity for checking everything out. Auction went fine, but the first sign of trouble came after. The couple took nearly 2 hours to sign the contract. It's explained to them that this is an unconditional sale, as in they can't pull out of the sale for any reason without losing their deposit. They also can't request a building or pest inspection now and use the findings as a reason to come back out of the sale and then receive their deposit back. Those things are meant to be organized before purchase, or you just take your chances. That's how it works here when it's an auction. A private sale has different rules. They then asked to purchase some furniture, which we said that we'd think about. In the next days, the real estate agent starts plaguing us with a number of texts and calls, asking various questions about the property on behalf of the couple. What are the roof tiles made of? When did we last clean the roof? What is the deck made of? What's the material under the deck? Where's the storage battery for the solar panels? And finally, have we had the air conditioner serviced? And so on. We answer it all, but it starts to become annoying, and we advise the agents all of this info in either the ad or the building report. Or it should have been discussed before the purchase. It starts to become clear that the couple are wealthy investors who have moved from another country and just bought the house off the photos. They then demand a building inspection. Our conveyancer urgently advises against this. If they were to find pretense to pull out of the deal, then they would lose their deposit, yes, but then we would have no funds coming through for the settlement of our new house. We do not have any legal obligations to say yes, so I advise no. The agents harass us for a week, begging, but I tell them to drop the topic, and it's a definite no. The couple then asks to bring forward the settlement date. We're actually okay with this, but the lady we purchased our new house from is not. To make the money work, we need to settle the old and new houses on the same day, so we have to say no, or else we have to spend a lot of money putting ourselves up in a hotel for a few weeks. We can't afford that, and so we say no. This angers the couple because then they have to pay extra rent where they're currently living. We apologize, but it's out of our hands. The agents harass us again on the couple's behalf, but we stay firm. Another barrage of questions about the house follow, which we answer. They then ask us which furniture we're selling them. Well, we decline to sell anything, as these people are just too much trouble. Then the couple asks for their pre-settlement inspection. Now, this is normal to check that nothing included in the sale contract has been moved from the home, like fixtures and fittings such as curtains and so on. It's legally not meant to be done until the 7 days before settling, and they request it 15 days out. We tried to tell them to come on the Monday or Tuesday before settlement so that the house is empty, and they refused. We end up saying yes, as we don't want them there while we have our storage containers on site and have scheduled time to be packing. We make it clear the house is not in final sale condition, and they are agreeing to settle as is with our goods taken out, and they agree in writing. On inspection day, we happen to have an old couch on the nature strip awaiting hard rubbish collection. It's been completely torn up by our cats, and not even any of the neighborhood scavengers have collected it. They are clearly upset that we didn't sell the furniture to them, and they accuse us of dumping rubbish on their property. We remind them it's not theirs yet and show them the council booking slip for collection. We drove around the block at inspection time and settled in the court opposite and watched them bring someone who we highly suspect was a builder on site without our permission. Couldn't prove it though. Finally, we are packing our storage containers the weekend before settlement. We take a 5-minute break and sit inside with the front door and container door open, keeping an ear out if anyone starts sniffing about our goods. Lo and behold, we hear people walking around in the driveway next to our containers. I am out of my seat like a shot and instantly saw these guys are builders measuring our fence. I demand to know what they think they're doing. They say they were told no one would be there and they were allowed in. I snapped and screamed at them that this was still my property, that they didn't have permission to be there and to leave. They refused and said, "Oh, we'll be just a minute doing this." I said no, they were trespassing and to get out. They start walking over to me being threatening and intimidating, getting in my personal space. Now, I'm a woman under 5 feet and I'm an easy target in their eyes, I guess. At this point, they look up and see that my very tall and large husband is coming toward them and hot-footed to their car. I call the agents and my conveyancer in a rage and let them know this is completely unacceptable and I will call the police if they are seen again, and the couple deny that they sent them. The day of settlement comes and all is good for the money. We hand our keys over and breathe a sigh of relief that this is all over. But it isn't. We get an angry email from the couple's conveyancer claiming that we left goods on the property and didn't leave it in fit condition for settlement, and that as his client wasn't allowed on the property, he couldn't check for this properly. We reminded the conveyancer that his client already put it in writing that they came to inspect too early and accepted the condition of the house. He attaches pictures of the goods that they want picked up. It's a bag of rubbish that we forgot in the shed, probably from the day their builders came and we were distracted. In the photo are also things like spare fence pickets and roof tiles, which we left as a courtesy. Fine, we say, this is all too hard, we'll come and get it. So we have to get permission to go on the property as it's not ours anymore. My husband gets there and starts packing up everything in the photo. The owners freak out and demand that he leave everything there. My husband refuses until they put it in writing what they want left. Begrudgingly, they write that they want the fence pickets and all the spare bathroom and roof tiles left. Then my husband takes the paint tins that we left. Remember, we just renovated before we sold, so we left some paint for touch-ups. They want him to leave it all there, but they refuse to put it in writing, so he takes it all and snail pellets too. Oh well, the garden has a massive snail problem, but they can pay out of their own pocket to deal with that now. In the end, all they really wanted gone was the bag of rubbish and the decorative steel panels at the back of the house, which we left as a fixture and fitting as per contract. But anyway, they just made a fuss as retaliation about the builder to inconvenience us. The icing on the cake? They demanded my husband change the alarm code for them on his way out. He told them no, it was not his responsibility to do that, and also he had left them detailed written instructions on how to do it themselves. They said they couldn't figure it out, and he shrugged and told them to get a technician and then walked out. By contrast, at our new home, the previous owner left us a long handwritten letter explaining how the house works, some menus of her favorite takeout, and her number if there were any questions. She left us spare light globes, electrical parts, fittings, and spare floorboards. We were happy about that, as we intend to change out the old carpet and can now match the rest of the flooring. We found that she left behind some handwritten recipes and cookbooks. We texted her thanks for the note, and would she like her books? She was so grateful. That's how it should have gone. The people we sold to were so awful to deal with. If they had been nicer, we would have left the couple a handwritten note of our own, explaining to avoid the neighbor on the right, as he has no sense of social norms and the only way to get him to leave is to slam the door in his face. Oh, and he also has a severe pest problem on his property. It's a giant forest in suburbia and he doesn't maintain it. Oh well. Hope they don't mind rodents, ticks, and all manner of spiders, including nests of redbacks, jumping jack ants, eastern brown snakes, and foxes. Or grass that is as tall as your shoulders. We would also have explained to avoid the neighbor to the left, who we were sure was a drug dealer, bikies at his house at all hours, and constantly having roof plumbing done, pressure washes his truck most days to clean the residue. And in his off time, he plays with power tools in a manner that can only be described as grinding a block of steel. Looking back, actually, it wasn't a great place to live. Hope they enjoy. What do you think those Karens are going to do when they find out what their place is really like? Way to go, OP. What do you think? Karen doesn't like people parking in front of her house, posted by the Fallen Polish. So, when I was around 6 years old, I lived with my family in a nice house in a small city in Poland. It was a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts, and pretty much all the neighbors knew each other. There were no sidewalks around the part of the street that I lived at, only one crappy sidewalk that started on the other side in front of my neighbor's house. It's important to remember that the sidewalk was very old and in bad shape. Still, to this day, people are asking the city to fix it. This story is about that neighbor, Karen. She was an older lady, and everyone suspected that she really didn't have anything better to do than gather gossip and disturb everyone trying to rule the street. Everyone was commenting that if you wanted to get the whole area to know something, you had to tell her that message as a secret. Whenever someone came to visit us, they usually parked their car in front of our property. But on bigger meetups, like barbecues or parties, people would park in front of our closest neighbors' houses too. That never was a problem. No gates were obstructed and no one was disturbed. Well, almost. Karen hated when someone parked in front of her house. She would always run out yelling about, "How dare you park your filthy cars on my precious sidewalk?" My mother is not someone that lets someone yell at her. She had many discussions with Karen about the laws and rules that stated that she doesn't own anything outside of her fence, which means that the sidewalk is public and anyone can park on it as long as they leave enough space for a wheelchair to pass. That wasn't enough. Every time someone would come to us and park their car there, the yelling would start. Until one time when my mother's friend, Tomek, came for a coffee during winter. He's a local policeman and his specialty is road law. So my mother tells him about Karen and her behavior regarding the sidewalk. Tomek laughs since that thing was in such bad shape that it can barely even be called a sidewalk. When he was leaving, he assured my mom that he would step by next day for coffee on his lunch break. The next day comes by and I was playing with my brother in the snow. We see a black car pulling over in front of Karen's house, and as the driver gets out, Karen storms out of her house yelling, "You can't park here. This is my sidewalk. Get your filthy car off my prop." Well, there he was, Tomek, with his full uniform, hat and all, turning around towards Karen as comically as he could. "Excuse me? You tell me that I can't park my car here?" Yes. "But this is a sidewalk open to the public." "Yes, this is my sidewalk." "So, let me get this right. This is your sidewalk?" "Yes." "And you are the one responsible for taking care of it?" Proudly, Karen replies, "Well, yes, I am. That's why I don't allow anyone to park here." "Oh, that's so nice that I found you. Since it's your sidewalk, you are responsible for clearing the snow from it to not create danger for the people walking on it. Since it was not plowed, I need to write you a fine for endangering public safety," he says as he pulls out his notebook. "But no other sidewalks are plowed." "Oh, it doesn't matter. The other sidewalks belong to the city. The clearing crew is working on cleaning them. But since this sidewalk is yours, it is your responsibility." "But I'm old. I can't shovel the snow." "Then you need to hire someone to do that. Of course, if this sidewalk happened to be of public property..." Yeah, it's not mine." "No." "But a moment ago you were yelling at me that it was. So what is it? Is it yours or not? Because I don't know if I should fine you now." "No, it's not mine." "All right, seems we've cleared that up. Now, if you ever harass anyone like you did with me, it could result in a fine. So, I recommend you watching out on what you claim to be yours." And then he proceeded to cross the street and enjoy a coffee in our house. Karen never disturbed anyone for parking in front of her house again. She would only stare at people trying to burn holes in their skulls with her sight. I ruined a man's life. Posted by Was This Over the Top? Oh boy, here we go. This happened about 4 years ago, but I recently found out how my part of the revenge plan panned out, which is what prompted me to post this. I have never shared this with anyone before. Background. My mom has been best friends with Eileen, not her real name, since they were both kids, and Eileen has kind of been like an aunt to me. About 5 years ago, Eileen's husband of more than 25 years surprised her by asking for a divorce. Eileen lived about 6 hours away from my mom at the time, and I lived out of state, so I didn't find out how everything went down until a few months after their divorce was finalized. Unfortunately, Eileen's life kind of spiraled out of control after the separation and divorce. She developed depression and a drinking problem, but my mom and some other childhood friends were able to convince her to move back to her hometown, and then they convinced her to go to rehab. I moved back home shortly before Eileen went to rehab, and because my school and work schedule was pretty flexible, I was able to house sit and take care of some stuff while she was in rehab. The first time I visited her in rehab, I got the whole divorce story, and it was bad. Eileen's ex, Jeff, also not his real name, hadn't talked to Eileen about any problems prior to asking for a divorce, so she just assumed that he fell out of love with her. But I was immediately skeptical about the things Eileen told me. First, Jeff, who was an executive at a pharmaceutical company earning mid-six figures, was fired from his job a year before they split up and decided to take a break before looking for another job. It was weird to me that Jeff decided to take a break from work because he'd always been such a workaholic. Eileen hasn't worked in years because of a disability, but she has some property and a trust her parents left her that lets her live a comfortable life without working. Jeff and Eileen lived off money from the trust while he was unemployed. Then, after Jeff said he wanted a divorce, he refused to go to couples therapy or talk about why he wanted the divorce. The only thing he would say was that they had grown apart and that he was sick of being with a woman like Eileen. He said Eileen's mother was right about her. Eileen's mother was a classic narcissist, and she bullied Eileen horribly about her attractiveness, weight, intelligence, and so on, which caused a lot of psychological problems that Jeff knows about. Finally, right after the divorce was finalized, Jeff moved out of state, but to a state he didn't have any family or connections in. Jeff's parents are still alive and in their 80s and 90s, and Jeff is pretty close to them, so it didn't make any sense to me why Jeff wouldn't move to be closer to them if he wanted to move after the divorce. I didn't say anything to Eileen because I didn't want to upset her, but I thought Jeff might have been having an affair, had orchestrated his unemployment to avoid paying alimony, and then moved out of state to be with his mistress. I just didn't have a way to confirm it at the time. The investigation. Then Eileen asked me to look for a box of Jeff's stuff that he had asked her to hold for him until he moved into his new apartment. She told me all the info on the box, the contents, and his new address was all in an email that he'd sent her, and she gave me the password to her computer so I could access the email. This is where I lucked out. Turns out, Jeff had used her computer and set up his email on the computer. I accidentally clicked on the app for his email when I was searching for Eileen's email. I decided to take a peek at his email, and the first thing that I noticed was that he had mostly stopped using that email address 3 years before, which was about 1 year before he was fired. In a folder for digital receipts, I found a confirmation email for a dating site, either Plenty of Fish or Match, I can't remember which I think he saved there accidentally. I also found a verification email for a new email address. I started to put together a speculative timeline of what happened. I guessed that about 3 years before, Jeff started an affair, and shortly after, he decided to get a new email address to help keep the affair secret. I wanted to access his dating profile to get more information, so I tried to use the forgot password feature to see if I could generate an email that would allow me to reset the password and log in that way. Unfortunately, the dating site didn't recognize Jeff's old email address. I thought I might be able to get into Jeff's new email using his old email to reset the password, and then maybe I could use the new email to get into the dating website. But I didn't want to risk locking Jeff out of his new email and then alerting him until I knew more about what he'd done. And here's where I totally lucked out. The email app Jeff downloaded to Eileen's MacBook had a note feature, and super genius Jeff saved some passwords on notes. Most of the passwords weren't helpful, but I did get the password to the dating site and his Twitter and Netflix accounts. I logged into the dating site using his new email address and the password. I was able to read messages Jeff sent to another woman before he broke up with Eileen. The new mistress sent Jeff her email address in one of the messages. I searched Facebook for the mistress's email address and found her profile. I couldn't read the mistress's post, but she left her photos public. She had recent photos of her and Jeff, so I knew they were still together. She also had posted a photo of construction crew breaking ground on a new home for her and Jeff, which was interesting because I got the impression from Eileen that Jeff didn't have a lot of money after the divorce. Here's where my background is important. At the time, I was attending law school. I had moved back from my hometown for one semester for a legal residency, and I had access to Lexis's database, specifically their public records database. I had spent a good portion of one of my summer internships tracking down property records and other assets to help recover judgments for clients, so I knew how to search for public records. The mistress had purchased several acres in a wealthy suburb several months before Jeff filed for divorce, and there was no mortgage listed on the record. I'd already found the mistress's LinkedIn page, so I knew she worked as an executive assistant before she moved out of state with Jeff. She didn't advertise her salary, but I doubted she could have afforded the property with her salary alone. It's possible she had money outside of her salary, but I suspected that Jeff gave her the money to purchase the land before he filed for divorce. I also found an updated record in Lexis showing Jeff and the mistress as joint owners of the property. I called the county recorder office to confirm the ownership of the property and the dates and so on. The mistress had filed a quitclaim just 5 weeks after Jeff's divorce was finalized. I was still hesitant to try to log into Jeff's new email, so I decided to check his old email again to see if there was anything else I should investigate before moving on to the new email. I didn't find anything, but I noticed that several passwords in his notes were the same. I decided to try to log into his new email using the same password he used for the dating site. I figured the two accounts were created around the same time, so if he recycled a password, that was the most likely candidate. It worked. His new email was a gold mine. Because this story is already getting ridiculously long, I'll list some of the relevant stuff I found. Jeff hadn't been fired from his old job. He quit and lied to Eileen. I found an email from his admin asking where to have payroll send his last check and details about a goodbye party for him. Some emails between Jeff and a boat repair person mentioning a leak somewhere on one side of the sailboat near the engine compartment. The repair guy couldn't find the source of the leak, but he talked about current and future problems with mold in the engine on that side. Emails between Jeff and a boat broker, which included the email address of buyers further down in the string. An emailed report from the boat inspector, which didn't include the leak or any mold damage or potential damage to the engine. Emails between Jeff and his contractor about changes made to the new house's sunroom, something about a 3-season sunroom versus a 4-season sunroom, and the construction needing to be modified to deal with the weight of snow. Emails between Jeff and the mistress. They had married. The mistress and Jeff shared a calendar. Some flirty emails between Jeff and another woman. Emails with info on Jeff's new employer, and then I downloaded all the important emails and their attachments and started thinking about a revenge plan. Revenge. To my mind, everything was fair game. He lied about being fired, so I wanted him fired from his new job. I suspected he hid his money before his separation from Eileen to help pay for his new house, so I wanted him to lose his house. He cheated, so I wanted to destroy his new relationship. Anything I could do about the boat was a bonus. The easiest place to start was the boat. I had no idea if the source of the leak was found and repaired or if the leak was verbally disclosed to the buyer, but I figured Jeff was a lying jerk, so odds were fair that he hid the info from the new buyer. I sent emails between Jeff and the repairman and another copy of the inspection to the buyer. I searched Jeff's county court website 5 or 6 months later and found out the buyers filed a suit against Jeff and the broker and inspector. Ha ha! Now, I couldn't figure out how to take or destroy Jeff's house, so I settled for contacting the county inspector's office to complain about the sunroom not being up to code. This is actually what prompted me to write this post, because I just found out some details about what happened with the county inspectors. Keep in mind, I heard this from a third party years after the fact, so I don't know all the details. It turns out the sunroom was code compliant. But the inspector did find a workshop or workroom attached to the detached garage that wasn't on the original permit and plans. The workshop had a bathroom that the contractor attached to the property's septic system after the initial inspection. A mutual friend of Eileen and Jeff told Eileen and me, and he guessed this was a big deal because the size of the septic system they installed wasn't sized to handle the additional input, but I don't know for sure. Jeff had to pay a fine and the workshop had to be removed. This ended up causing construction delays, which will become relevant below. As for destroying Jeff's marriage, my first impulse was to send the new wife the flirty emails between Jeff and the other woman. But when I searched for that woman on social media, I couldn't find anything. I had no way of knowing if the new wife knew the other woman and would think that the emails weren't important or evidence of an affair. Then I played around with the idea of updating Jeff's dating profile and sending stuff to his wife. But it would take too long to manufacture a fake relationship with real dates and times, and I was worried that Jeff might get an email alert from the dating site that would clue him in. I ended up just risking that the new wife wouldn't know the other woman. I pretended to be someone concerned about an affair between Jeff and the new woman. Overall, I kept the accusation vague, but I did say that Jeff and the new girl went out to eat and to the movies on a few dates that Jeff's shared calendar said that the new wife was out of town. I couldn't come up with a way to get Jeff fired. I rechecked his email and calendar over several weeks looking for something I could use to get him fired. Eventually, my legal residency got too busy to devote much time to revenge, so I decided to just let it go. Eileen recently reconnected with a friend she shared with Jeff, and that friend gave Eileen an update on Jeff. Eileen shared the details with me, and that's what reminded me of what I did and prompted this story. It turned out that I didn't need to worry about sabotaging Jeff's career. By luck, the woman Jeff had been emailing was actually his assistant at his new job, and Jeff's new boss was his brother-in-law. Jeff and his new wife actually moved to her hometown so she could be close to her family and so Jeff could go to work for his new brother-in-law. I have no idea if Jeff was actually cheating. He told a mutual friend that passed the story on to Eileen that they hadn't been having an affair. It didn't matter to the new wife though, because she and Jeff got together when Jeff was already married, so she didn't have a lot of trust for Jeff. She didn't believe Jeff's denials when I sent the email about him having an affair. She filed for divorce, and Jeff's brother-in-law boss fired him. And since the construction was delayed, the new house wasn't finished when Jeff and the new wife divorced. They had to sell an unfinished home, and Jeff took a big financial hit. Finally, these weren't part of my larger revenge plan, but I am pretty petty, so I took the box of Jeff's stuff, mostly photographs, and threw them away. I told Eileen they must have been lost in the move. Signed both of Jeff's email addresses for a bunch of spam, newsletters, mailing lists, and so on. Deleted his Netflix watch list. Posted, retweeted, and liked a bunch of adult content on his Twitter account and deleted all of the accounts he was following. The ending. I never told Eileen what I did because I wanted her to have plausible deniability and I didn't want to interfere with her recovery. She doesn't know about the boat lawsuit or the Netflix and Twitter stuff, but she did take satisfaction from his divorce and job loss. I probably would have let it all go if Jeff had just cheated because I had always really liked Jeff. I always thought he was nice, but I was obviously wrong about him. Nice people don't weaponize childhood abuse to mentally torture their wives. As far as I'm concerned, Jeff deserved everything I did to him.
Karen neighbor destroys my property and then calls the cops on me. I'm innocent. Click the video on your screen so you hear how this ends, and I'll see you there.